The climate agreement that was reached in historic fashion in Paris over the weekend isn't just an important step in saving the planet. It actually creates some important economic opportunity for the United States and American workers back here at home.
All right, well, 190 nations signing on to this climate change agreement that we in the United States will bear most of the costs getting things up and running. We're told down the road China and India will pitch in. They've made promises to. I'm just telling you, a lot of those are like my promises to eat a salad. I'm just saying, don't hold your breath, but that's neither here nor there. Ben Stein has seen and heard this argument, particularly some of the more specious points in his eyes about all the jobs that will be created when he's looking at all the jobs in the fossil fuel industry that have already gone thanks to these tumbling energy prices. Nevertheless, there's a lot more to this agreement that Ben Stein hates than those that I'm outlining right now. He joins me right now. One of the best thinkers, period, I know, Ben Stein. Ben, good to see you.
Well, first of all, you're much too kind to me. Look, I want to ask a question. What if man-made climate change is a fraud? I'm not saying it is, and I'm not saying I don't want clean air. I wrote the first speech that any president sent up to Congress for clean air, for the Clean Air Act under Mr. Nixon. So I'm all for clean air. But man-made climate change, first of all, climate change itself is very much in question. The Earth stopped heating up about 25 years ago. The data that show that the Earth is the hottest it's been in 200 years or whatever it is very much in question because the data from 200 years ago is extremely specious. Yes, the polar ice cap in the North Pole is melting, but the polar ice cap in the South Pole is getting very, very much bigger, very, very rapidly. Yes, indeed, we have questions about the climate, but there have always been questions about the climate. And since you always make a point of pointing out my age, and I am a lot older than you, I will say that I can remember very well in the 60s and early 70s when we were fearing a new ice age. What if by any chance all of this climate change, A, is not happening, or B, if it is happening, is not man-made, or if it is man-made, if it's not coming from the U.S., but coming from China and India. And we're going to crucify the American worker and the American businessman in the name of a false goal. What if that's happening? It's not impossible.
Well, you ought to get with the program, young man, because the whole world is signed on to this, and the whole world is going to pony up for this. And we are going to pony up a lot of this. But you're quite right to say what the focus was in the 70s, particularly when we were worried about a big freeze. But having said that, I talked to a lot of these scientists who say, well, Neil, the evidence is irrefutable now, and 9 out of 10 buy this. And then I come to find out the climatologists or whatever we call them, the ratio isn't that strong. But so we are committing a lot of money, a lot of American money, to something that looks like it is a problem. The flip they give to you, Ben, is saying, well, what have we got to lose trying to develop cleaner factories, cleaner air? What do we lose doing that?
We lose people's jobs. I mean, yes, to a millionaire's college student son or daughter who demonstrates for saving the earth, it means nothing. But for a coal miner in West Virginia or Tennessee or Virginia, it means a great, great deal. For a person losing his job in the oil fields in North Dakota or in West Texas, it means a great, great deal. For a person who's going to have to put up his tax dollars to buy much more expensive energy when fossil fuel energy is by far the most effective, efficient form of energy we've ever known on this planet, it means a great, great deal. But I wonder, look, here's China, our best friend, our buddy, Mr. Nixon, my former boss, and Pat Buchanan's former boss, signed them into the World Community of Nations. They're the ones ginning out all these pollutants that are supposedly causing global warming. And they haven't even promised to stop. They've just promised to consider it at some point down the road. If we're really going to try to, quote, save the Earth, which, by the way, is a ridiculous goal. I mean, saving the Earth is not really in danger of being lost. If we're going to really save the Earth, to use that specious idea, China's got to sign on in a huge way. India's got to sign on in a huge way. They're not doing it. All the burden comes onto the American worker.
Do you think that, and you and I have chatted about this before, and again, I'm glad you mentioned the EPA Day, because that was formed under Richard Nixon, a Republican president. But the concern was then about the rivers that were filthy and water streams that had been compromised. That was a Teddy Roosevelt type of approach to the environment.
And I'm 100% in favor of that. I want clean air. I want clean water. I want the sky to look beautiful. But I don't want people being terrified and having the government have long-term giant powers over the ordinary American in order to, quote, save the planet. I am more worried about saving political freedom. That is, to me, it seems to be the real thing we're in danger of losing.
You know, I talked to Nebraska Senator on Fox Business, which if you don't get, Ben, I highly recommend.
Oh, you have to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things she was raising with me is that because the requirement will be that you have to cut, these so-called dirty emissions by 40%, it will mean a commensurate 40% run-up in utility bills, which for a lot of folks out there could mean $100 more a month and probably played out in states across the country. And I don't know whether her math adds up, but people are going to pay more in the utility bills. The question is it worth it for the roll of the dice that will have cleaner air? You say no, essentially. Right?
No, I say it's worth it for cleaning the air, but they can clean the air by having scrubbers on the smokestacks from the utility plants.
Which I thought they already did.
Well, they can have more scrubbers. They can have more and better scrubbers. They can have Ajax scrubbers. But what we're really questioning is the Earth really in jeopardy from man-made climate change? Does it necessitate such drastic, radical action? Does it necessitate Mr. Obama saying we're going to change the whole world? And above all, in my mind, does it excuse Mr. Obama's complete failure in the terrorism fight? Is he not just moving the ball, playing the three-card Monte game, and moving the ball to distract us from his failures in other areas?
Well, someone's a hater. Ben Stein?
No, put me down as a maybe.
Okay, got you. Ben Stein, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Just love the way he thinks. Whether you agree or disagree, it's clear, it's lucid. You can have at it, but you certainly know where he's coming from. We could do a lot worse than to have more guests like Ben.